Hi, I'm Susan Rutledge, and in this video I'll show you how to make a design like the one on my artboard using the symbol sprayer and the symbolism tools in Adobe Illustrator. First, we need to understand how symbols work and how we can get them. So I'm going to move into another document and I'm going to open up the Symbols panel. I'll come up to Window, down to Symbols, and the keyboard shortcut is Shift-Command F11. Once I have the Symbols panel open, I'm going to click and hold down the tab with my mouse and drag and dock it over next to the Properties panel on the right side of my artboard. You'll see that I already have a few symbols in here, but I have access to a lot more through Illustrator by coming down to the bottom left icon and clicking on the Symbol Libraries menu. This opens up a lot of different categories and you're going to want to explore these, but right now I'm just going to choose flowers, and this is going to open up the flowers symbols. And to show you how easy it is to add them to the symbols panel, I'm going to click on this purple aster, and as I do, it's immediately added to the symbols panel. I can click on the sunflower, same thing happens, and then I'll just close this out. But I'm not limited to the symbols that Illustrator provides. I can create my own, which I've done here. I made a little rose, I created a heart, and then this little green dot cluster, and I've included the CMYK colors here that I used. Once I created the single symbols, I also made a grouping of the symbols because I may want to use both of these. And the way to add these symbols to the symbols panel is to simply click on the design and drag and drop it into the symbols panel. I'm going to name this Rose, and I'm going to change the export type to graphic, and then I'll say OK. And I'll do that with each one of these symbols. I'll grab the heart, drag it over, change it to heart, change this to graphic, and say OK. I'll grab this one, drag it over, and I'm going to name this small green cluster, change this to graphic, and say OK. And I'm going to speed this up as I add the rest of these. And that's all you have to do to add your own symbols to the symbols panel. When I originally created these designs, I did draw them larger, but then once I had them the way I wanted them, I reduced the size before I turned them into symbols. I do that because I find it's easier to start out with your symbols small and then increase the size as you want them to. And the beauty of using Illustrator is this is vector art, so you can increase or decrease the size of your artwork and it's not going to change the quality at all. Once you have your symbols in place, you're going to need the symbol sprayer tool, and that's located on the advanced left toolbar. I have the basic left toolbar setting, so I'm going to come up to Window and down to Toolbars and choose Advanced. This is going to give me extra tools, and one of those is my symbol sprayer tool. You can see that there's a little triangle in the bottom right corner, which means if I click down and hold, I'm going to have a flyout menu, which gives me all of the different symbolism tools, and to have access to those throughout the whole project, I'll come over to this right bar, click on this arrow. That gives me a menu which I can move around on the artboard to get it out of my way. I'm going to put it up here at the top. Now this little menu is so small that I've created an example of it that's not going to work, but at least you'll be able to see the symbols. So I'm going to move over to the Layers panel. I'll hide the Samples layer, and I'm going to unhide the Tools layer. First, we have the symbol sprayer, and this is the tool we use to place the symbols on the artboard. Once they've been sprayed on, then we can use these other tools to edit them. And we'll go through these in more depth as we're working on the project. The symbol shifter allows us to move the symbols. The scruncher allows us to scrunch them together or move them apart. The symbol sizer allows us to increase or decrease the size of the symbol. The symbol spinner allows us to rotate the symbol. The symbol stainer allows us to recolor the symbol. The symbol screener allows us to change the opacity of the symbol, and the symbol styler allows us to apply a graphic style to the symbol. I'm going to hide this sample, and I'll click on the symbol sprayer tool, and then I'm going to press the return key, and that's going to open the Symbolism Tools options dialog box. And let's take a look at all of these options. First of all, we have the diameter, and this does not have anything to do with the size of the symbols, but everything to do with the size of the brush itself. And I can change that by just typing in a different number. Next, we have the intensity value, which can be set anywhere from 1 to 10, and this is going to regulate the different symbolism tools that we use once we have the symbols on the artboard. I'm going to leave the setting on fixed because I'm using a mouse in this project. If you're using a digital pen and a tablet, then you're going to want to check these other options out as well. Now we have the symbol set density, and again, this value can be anywhere from 1 to 10, and this regulates how close the symbols are sprayed onto the artboard. If I put a 1 in here, the symbols are going to be further apart. If I increase that number, the symbols are going to be closer together. Next, we have the individual tools that we've already talked about, but if you click on any of these, you're going to find some keyboard shortcuts, which I'll be showing you in a few minutes. Then finally, we have in 6 of the 7 symbolism tools the choice to either leave average selected or user defined. I'm going to change all of these to user defined so that Illustrator recognizes my intensity value I type in rather than giving me just a very small incremental change whenever I use the tools. Then I'm always going to leave show brush size and intensity checked. Now let's say OK. Then I need to make some changes to the artboard. First, I'm going to move our little menu over to the right side of my workspace so that I have the full view of the artboard. I'm going to center it using the keyboard shortcut Command 0, and I'm going to reduce its size with the keyboard shortcut Command -. I want to be able to see clearly all of the outside edges of the artboard because I want all of these symbols that I'm spraying on to be evenly dispersed. Now I'm going to get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and click on the artboard to open up the rectangle dialog box, and I'm going to type in 15 inches for the width, tab down and type in 10 inches for the height, and press the return key. Then I'll get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and then I'm going to place this rectangle on the very center of the artboard and change its fill color to white, and this is going to serve as our background. So I'm going to move to the layers panel, double click on the layer and name this background. Then I'm going to lock it and the tools and the samples layers and add a new layer. I'll come down to the bottom of the layers panel and click on create new layer. I'll double click layer 4, and I'm going to name this heart group because this is the first group of symbols that we're going to add. Now I'll move to the symbols panel and click on the heart group and select the sprayer, and with the sprayer active, I'm going to press the return key, and I'm going to change the symbol set density to 1. Now remember that the lower the value of the density, the further apart our symbols are going to be as they're sprayed onto the artboard. I'm going to say OK, and then I'll begin spraying across the top of my artboard. Now I'm not getting what I expected in pink symbols. Instead, I have these light gray hearts, and that's because I had an active color of white on the artboard when I began to spray my symbols. I'm going to delete this and show you what I mean. This white square here shows that I have a fill color of white, and that comes from the white fill of our background. Anytime that you have an active fill on the artboard, you run the risk of your symbol picking up that color. So what I'm going to do is come over to the left toolbar and click on None. And that's going to remove the active color fill from my artboard and solve the color problem with my symbols. But when I sprayed those hearts, I noticed something else I want to change. So I'm going to press the return key and open up the tool options dialog box. These symbols were a little too far apart. So I'm going to change the density back to 5, and then I'll say OK. And now I'm ready to spray some symbols, and let's see what we have. Well, we're back to pink, and I like the spacing a lot better. So just as a precaution, anytime you start to spray a symbol onto your artboard, I recommend that you come over to the left toolbar, click on the None so that you're sure you don't have an active color that's going to influence the way your symbols look. All right, I'm going to go ahead and continue to add symbols, and I'm not worried about some of my symbols being on the outside of the artboard. I simply want to make sure that I have a pretty even spread of symbols on the inside of the artboard. I'm going to add just a few more here. And once I'm happy with the results, I'm going to begin editing these symbols. First, I'll come to the symbol shifter tool, click here, and I have a really small brush, and I want to enlarge that so I can move my heart groups faster. So I'm going to increase the brush size by pressing down on the right bracket key several times. Then I'm able to grab hold of these hearts and move them exactly where I want them. Now, we're not trying to get everything perfect because we're going to continue to use tools and move things around. So you're going to have plenty of chances to come back and redo anything that you're not happy with. Next, I'm going to move to the symbol Scruncher tool. And this is the tool that scrunches my symbols together. So when I press on an area, they move together. And the longer I keep my mouse down, the closer they're going to scrunch. And if I want them to spread apart, I hold down the Option key and I get the opposite of the scrunching. They're actually separating. And that can be a beneficial tool when you end up with a lot of different hearts on top of each other. Now, in this spot right here, I'm going to scrunch together. So I've taken my finger off of that Option key and I'll move these together. And then I'm going to move to the symbol sizer tool, and I'm going to decrease the size of my brush, pressing down on the left bracket key several times because I want to be able to target individual sets and make just a few larger at a time. Let me get a few of these larger in the corners. The longer I hold my cursor down, the bigger these become. Then, if I want to make some of the symbols smaller, I hold down the Option key and press down, and my hearts begin to get smaller. And again, the longer that I hold down, the greater the intensity of the change that occurs. So I'm going to make these smaller towards the edge. And then let's move to the next tool, which is the symbol spinner tool. I'll press here, and with this tool, what I do is I click and I drag to change the direction of these symbols. I can't just press and have it happen. I've got to actually manually drag these around. But when we use this tool, it makes the hearts look like they've been sprayed in different directions rather than something that is all the same. And I think if I make this brush larger, this is going to be easier. So I'll use the right bracket key, increase the size a little bit, and then we'll move some of these around. And again, I'm just doing this randomly to make these look a little different. Now, the next tool is the symbol stainer tool. When I use this tool, I have to actually pick a new color that's going to stain some of my symbols. So I'm going to come over to the Properties panel and click on the Color Fill icon. And I'm going to choose this pink CMYK color 09520 0. Now, with this stainer tool active, I can target individual groups, and I can stain these a little bit of a different color. Now, if you make too much of a change in color, I found that instead of adding, it takes away from the general appearance. But I think this color actually blends in okay with the rest of the hearts, so I'm going to leave it there. The next tool is the Symbol Screener tool, and this is what changes the opacity of some of your symbols. And I'll decrease the brush size by pressing on the left bracket key. And then I'm going to click on a symbol set, and you can see how it gets just a little fainter. Now that was too much, so I'm going to hold the Option key down and click on it again, and that brings some of the opacity back. I really want to be able to see these symbols, so I'm not going to change the opacity on any more of these at all. The last tool is the Symbol Styler tool, and this tool allows you to apply graphic styles to the symbols that are on your artboard. So I'll come up to Window and choose Graphic Styles. The keyboard shortcut is Shift F5. Now Illustrator comes with a few preset graphic styles already, and the one I'm going to be using is this second one, which adds a drop shadow. But before I apply that, I'm going to create another graphic style of my own. To do that, I'll get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and drag a rectangle onto the artboard. I'll move over to the properties panel and remove the fill color. There's not any kind of a special effect applied to this, so I'm going to get the selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and drag this no style rectangle onto the graphic styles panel, and then I'll delete the rectangle from the artboard. And I'll show you why I need this one in a minute. But I'm going to go ahead and select the Symbol Styler tool, and I'll select this drop shadow graphic style, and then I'll go to the layers panel, and I've got to actually select the heart group. That's where I'm going to be applying these effects. So let's go ahead and just start right here. And as I click, you can see the drop shadow added to these symbols. I'm going to just add these to a few of the symbols around the edges of my artboard. Then when I'm finished, I'm going to click on the graphic style I created, which basically has no style added to it. And I'm going to apply that to one of the symbol sets on the artboard. This step is really important, especially if you're going to be adding more symbols to the artboard, because it's breaking the link between the drop shadow graphic style and the Symbol Styler tool. If I didn't remove the drop shadow style, then any new symbols that I add to the artboard are going to automatically come with a drop shadow, and I don't want that. That's why I created this non-style. So just remember that as you use the Styler tool. All right, I'm going to close out the graphic styles panel, and I'm ready to add some new symbols. So I'm going to lock the heart group. I'm going to come down to the bottom of the layers panel and create a new layer. I'll double click layer 5, and I'm going to name this one Rose Group. And I'll select the roses, come over to the symbols panel and choose the roses and the symbol sprayer tool. Now, while I have the sprayer tool active, I'm going to press the return key, and I'm going to dial down the symbol density to about a 2 because I don't want as many roses as I have hearts. I'm going to say OK, and then I'll begin spraying out some of my roses. And that's not the color of the symbol that I wanted. Well, what happened was I didn't go back before I added the symbols to remove the active color on the artboard. So I'm going to press the delete key. Then I'll move over to the left toolbar and press none to remove that active color on the artboard, and we'll try this again. This time when I spray my roses, they're the right color. So we'll add some roses around the artboard. And then I'm going to begin to edit these. Well, I'm actually pretty happy with the location of these right now. So I'm going to come on over to the Symbol Sizer tool, click here, and I'm going to hold the Option key down because I want to make some of these a little smaller. I'm holding the Option key down. If I wanted them larger, I'll let up on the Option key and just click on the rose itself. That's actually a little bigger than I want it, so I'm going to hold the Option key down and click it again. Let's make this one a little bigger, and I'll increase the size of a couple of these that are in the corners. And then I'm going to move to the spinner tool. And since you've already seen how this tool works, I'm going to speed this process up. Just remember that I have to manually turn these, so I press on each rose and turn. And that can get sort of tedious as I move along, and I have a really small brush right now. So I think to speed it up even more, I'm going to use the right bracket key and increase my brush size. And that's going to allow me to move these faster. I'm going to go back to this symbol shifter tool and move a few of these roses to where they stay on the artboard and they're not outside the boundaries. I think that looks pretty good. We do have one more symbol I want to add. I'll come back to the Layers panel, lock the rose group, and come down and click on the Create a New Layer icon. I'll double click Layer 6, and I'm going to name this Green Clusters. Now, I use layers a lot in my workflow. You don't have to use different layers when you're working with these symbols, but I think it just helps keep things organized. And if you want to learn more about using layers in Illustrator, I'm going to leave a link to a tutorial for you at the end of this video. All right, so we're going to select the clusters, and I'll move to the symbols and select this large green cluster symbol. And I'm going to also select this symbol sprayer. And then these are going to just get kind of scattered around the edges. I'm not going to put a lot of these in here, but I want a few of them. And I want these little clusters to actually be underneath my hearts and underneath my roses. So I'm going to go back to the Layers panel, and I'm going to grab hold of the green cluster layer with my mouse, press down, and drag it underneath the rose group and the heart group. But I want to make sure that it's above my background layer so that I'll be able to see them. So I'll drop that layer here. And now you can see the clusters through the openings, but they're actually on the bottom layer, and they're not going to be covering up the roses or the hearts. I'm going to click on the symbol shifter tool, and let's move these around just a little bit. Get some of these where they're kind of peeking out. And I may decide I want to add a few more, but I'm going to just try moving these first. I like to add different sizes of symbols, especially some little ones like these clusters. It adds more texture, and it's allowing me to add another color in this design. And I think I'll leave it like that. Now, before I finalize the design, I'm going to check my symbols out and make sure I like where everything is. I'm seeing several roses where a lot of the piece is off the artboard, so I want to move those back on. So I'm going to lock the green clusters and unlock the rose group, and I'll click on the rose group, and then I have the shifter tool active. I come over and just kind of nudge these onto the artboard. And I think I like that a little better. So now that I'm finished editing the design, the last thing I need to do is mask the area that is on the outside of the artboard. So I'm going to lock the rose group and come down and add one more layer. This layer is going to be the masking layer. And then I'm going to select the layer and get the rectangle tool, keyboard shortcut M, and click on the artboard to open the rectangle dialog box. Now, my mask has got to be the exact size of the artboard itself. So I'm going to type in 15 inches for the width, tab down and type in 10 inches for the height, and then press the return key. I want to have a fill color here, so I'll come to the Properties panel, and it doesn't matter what color I choose because it's going to end up not showing. But I'm going to click away from the Swatches panel to close it, get the Selection tool, keyboard shortcut V, and I'm going to move the rectangle and place it right in the very center of the top layer of the artboard and then release my mouse. Then I'm going to come to the layers panel and I'm going to unlock the rose group and the heart group, the green clusters, and the background because I want all of these to be in this masked group. I do not want to include my earlier samples of the tools and the samples. So I've got the masking layer selected. I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select each of these other symbol groups and the background. And then I'll come up to Object, down to Clipping Mask, and click on Make. And I end up with a really nice border around my artboard. Now the final thing that I'm going to do is select this masking layer. I'll come over to Object and I'm going to choose Expand. I have Object, Fill, and Stroke selected and I'll say OK. And then to save this for future use, I'll come up to File and choose Export, Export As, and I'll give this a name, Roses and Hearts card. I can save it as a PNG, as a JPEG, as a TIFF. I'm going to go ahead and just save it as a PNG and export this. And I want it to have a high resolution. You can see the design here and I'll say OK. Now if I want to also save it as a PDF, I can back up and choose File, Save As, and we'll name this again Roses and Hearts. And I'm going to come down to the format and I'll choose PDF and choose Save. And I'm just going to go ahead and click again and not make any changes here. Save PDF. And I can use this little border design over and over again. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned some new things about using symbols and the symbolism tools. And I invite you to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss any of my future tutorials. And I'll look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye now.